Welcome to the Expert Speaker Podcast. We have very own Sean Offenbach here talking about how to become the #1 authority using podcasting. Sean has a full service agency producing super high quality podcasting, and he's going to give us the behind the scenes secrets about how to accelerate your authority so that when you go to the market, you are the undisputed best using podcasting. Thank you for being here, Sean.
Thank you so much, Majid. It is such an absolute honor to be here. And I am so excited to talk to all of you about what it means to be an absolute powerhouse in the podcasting world.
What's the difference between a Facebook Live video, a YouTube video, and a podcast? What is a podcast?
A podcast is the most intimate way to be transmuting your message to people. The average listener is listening for a duration of 43 to 47 minutes. The average listener is buying something recommended on a podcast at least once a year, at least once. So
okay, this is the thing that was really compelling to me when Sean and I talked about today's training. He said to me, you know, Majid, you and I, we have a very, very similar mission. We want to help experts generate income using their voice. Only you're using speeches. And he said to me, I think the #1 way to generate sales as an expert is podcasts. And Sean, what I didn't share with you is that I'm not making money with podcasts. I'm not making money with my podcast, and I'm hardly making money on other people's podcasts. So what I'm really interested to learn from you is how do I do a better job making sales when I'm on someone else's podcast? And how do I do a better job generating sales with my podcast? I have a podcast. It's not making me a lot of money. So that's where I want to go today, Sean. We're starting at the very beginning with what is a podcast and what's the opportunity here. I love these statistics, knowing that this is a really intimate way for you to connect with your audience and this super long form. And I agree, because I'm a podcast listener and I will go for hours. I love my long podcast. So let's keep going.
Quality inspires quantity, and you only need an audience of one. Speaking to the ideal listener that is the most resonating audience member, the most resonating buyer for you, your ideal buyer, that's who your podcast is for. Majid, you are making money with your podcast. I'm staring at 13 faces that are here, inspired partially by the energy exchange that you create because of your podcast. I mean, we're on it. Community behind podcast is one of the biggest ways that you could be capitalizing right now. You build community, you build audiences through being an expert speaker already. This could be a podcast for you, but the ideal way to be building an audience and creating a community is by building super fans. Some of you build super fans? Well, how have you been a super fan in your life? Maybe some of your favorite musicians, maybe some of your favorite artists. Who in your life do you basically say, whatever this guy's doing, I'm buying it all? Maybe that's Majid. Energy exchange. How do we do this on a podcast? You're already nailing down maybe pillar #1, being an expert speaker. Quality inspires quantity. The bar in podcasting is low, so it's like the wild, wild west. Most podcasts are Zoom calls. Most people are using audiograms to promote their podcast. Audiograms are rejected basically by Instagram algorithms and so forth. A lot of people are making the wrong moves. A lot of people aren't thinking that quality matters. Quality is a somewhat easy to establish thing, but quality starts with you being an effective speaker, right? How do we generate revenue by being an effective speaker? You pretty much know this answer already, but the answer that a lot of podcasters are not capitalizing on and what's possible for you is to be creating a community off the back end of your podcast. Does anybody already host a community for for their people? Okay, so cool. Kevin does. So here's the thing. You're already an expert speaker. You're fantastic to speaking to your ideal client. Podcasting is one of the most amazing places because the standard for podcasting is low. The opportunity to be immersive is high. It's easy. Being creative and having high quality media that is focused on your ideal audience member creates super fans.
Sean, what does it mean to host a community?
So, Majid, where do you host your community?
Facebook group. Well, I would say I have a Facebook group and I have an email list, but I would say the email list is not a community. I think the Facebook group is.
Sure. What's missing from Facebook groups to you?
Well, what's missing from my Facebook group is engagement because I don't do anything in it.
How do you generate engagement?
I throw in some posts.
Okay. And how many people see the posts?
I don't know.
Circle.so. That's your quick and surefire answer. Circle.so is an amazing platform that allows you to host masterminds, organize your group into tiers, pro groups, free groups. It's the first step into creating a central place and a central platform for your expert true voice. Circle allows you to create content, whether this is your podcast, whether this is a course, whether this is a digital download. Can this be off of Facebook? It's 100% off of Facebook. You own everything you create in circle.so. You can create multiple groups within your community, within your circle, and you can create pay gates. You can create subscriptions. If you don't know what a pay gate is, it's basically like, I just launched a program, you dump it into the community of people specifically interested in how to become an expert speaker. Here's a course on how to become an expert speaker, tier 1, part 1, whatever you want to call it. And you guys are all collectively here receiving, maybe it's free content, maybe it's free education, inspiration within this free spot. And then Majid just launched tier 2 of becoming an expert speaker. It's a 45-minute speech. It's the top 3 techniques you need to succeed. And it's $45, and you can just click purchase right there and partake in it. And what's really cool is Majid could be planting a campaign ahead of this, 1 week ahead of this, speaking to the power of tier 1, speaking to what's been generated and created in the community already, but something's missing, right? So in comes tier 2, the powerful upgrade to that. And the cool part is like in this free community, you can launch something like this. It's a click away from purchase. It's really awesome. You don't have to necessarily put people into a subscription platform. It makes it really easy for people to want to buy the next thing.
Okay, so part of your call to action on your podcast is join our free community. And you host your community on circle.so, right?
Yes.
Okay. Give us the step-by-step. If someone got off this call right now and said, all right, I want to start a podcast tonight. Mm-hmm. What do we do? What do you do?
All right. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to employ world's most unique and powerful formula that you're already completely aware of. And that is you're going to create a podcast and you're going to get highly intentional before you do it. Being highly intentional and creating a podcast is your number one upper hand in being effective. It's your number one upper hand in going way above this really low bar set in podcasting. You're going to create a mission statement. That mission statement is going to comprise of what problem am I solving and for who? Most podcasters are not completing this. You're going to take this mission statement and you're going to develop 3 pillars of your solution. My solution is this, and it takes this plus this plus this to create that solution. Now, if you want to get into mind mapping and getting really deep, this is how you become an expert in self-educating yourself before ever releasing material. This is where a never-ending well of content creation comes from. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite techniques. But in your recording, the thing that podcasters are not doing, the value they're not delivering, is solving a problem. If we were to apply this idea to a podcast, how would we create that over the course of an episode? In the first half, we could be talking about, what is this problem? Why is it painful? What's the curiosity? What's not happening in the world? Pivot and transition into, how do we solve that? How do we create a solution for that? What do we need to do as people to band together to create a better world? Right?
Okay, let me pause you there, Sean. Let me pause you there. So I'm asking for the step-by-step how to launch a podcast tonight. And what I'm hearing you say is get clear on what this is for, who is this for, get grounded in the mission, get connected to the problem, and how this podcast is the solution. Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are like some strategic clarity pieces. And now, how do I actually get the podcast onto that internet? Like, what am I recording? Do I need to get a fancy microphone? What do I do with the audio file to put it on the internet so that it's like I can look on someone else's phone and be like, look, there's my podcast.
Great. Tools to record yourself. You can go to riverside.fm. Free trial. You get 1 hour free recording. It's the highest quality way to record yourself. The next tool you need is Descript. Descript.com, Descript. What you're going to do is you are going to get a Riverside account. You're going to send your guest your link. They're going to use that link. You guys are going to record yourself in high quality. It works just like Zoom, but it's high quality. You're going to take that recording. You're going to open it in Descript, and using AI, you're going to auto remove filler words, auto reduce hesitation, long pauses.
Whoa. You're blowing my mind.
Yeah, okay, we're working at high speed now. You asked for it.
Okay, I did ask for it. All right. So first off, riverside.fm. I'm going to generate a link and send it to my guest. And that's going to create like a little video call for the two of us.
Yep.
And it's going to record in high quality audio.
Yep.
I know about Descript. And I've used it for just a transcriber, take an audio file and make it into words. But I did not know about this remove filler words and long pauses. So this will just automatically do that?
Yep.
Whoa.
On top of that, if there's a section of your podcast you don't like, you don't have to edit it in audio form, because a lot of people in this world are not used to looking at audio and hearing words. But what you can do is go into the transcribed version of your podcast, which is auto-generated when you first add the audio. And you can just delete sections and phrases and paragraphs from the podcast, and it deletes it from the audio. If you do a video podcast, you can delete the video section, the audio section, and the transcribed section in any way you want to, and it edits it in all three versions. And when you're done and you hit export, it will auto master the audio to a commercialized volume amount. And then you can upload this podcast for free using Anchor.fm, a free podcast distributor that will distribute your podcast to Spotify, a couple of other platforms. You'll have to connect your Apple ID to get it on iTunes. But once you do it the first time, it'll be there. And your podcast could literally be on Spotify and iTunes tonight in a couple of hours.
So it doesn't need to go through like the Apple approval process or anything like that?
There's a pending review process that might take a few hours.
Is podcast by definition an Apple thing or
Yes,
not necessarily?
It is. It was an Apple dedicated radio created in 2004, surprisingly or not. 50% of podcast growth happened since 2019.
Really?
It took 2 months for Instagram to get its 1 millionth subscriber. It took podcasting until this year to get its 1 millionth podcast. And do you know why it's the best platform to be an expert speaker on?
Why?
Because it's uncensored.
Oh, let's say some swear words.
It's uncensored. There are plenty of decentralized platforms available for podcasting. And if you match the consumption rate, the intimacy value of how people choose to listen to podcasts and consume the information and buy from a podcast with the fact that it's uncensored. Actually, let me pause for a second. How many of you are in the field of medicine of any type that is like not traditional medicine? I just want you to know that if you have a YouTube channel, if you do anything on YouTube, your content is being shown to like no one, and it won't be. I don't know if you're aware of this. What you do is the most highly censored thing on the internet. For you to not have a podcast, you're almost crazy, almost. So what we do, is anybody familiar with Wellness Force? Does anybody know Wellness Force? Josh Trent, Wellness Force? Josh had someone on his podcast back in July. He was getting millions of listens in combinations of streams across all of his platforms. In July, and I can't remember what client really brought it on. We're still trying to track it down. He had a series of a couple of different people brought onto his podcast. The YouTube algorithm didn't like him, and ever since, we're still scrapping to get back just a couple thousand views per video, scrapping. So we're on a couple of other platforms now, like Insight Timer. If you're not publishing your podcast to Insight Timer, does anyone know Insight Timer? Okay, cool, great. Last I checked, sometime last year, there were 88 million people on that app daily. Your opportunity to explode on that app in an uncensored way is tenfold, but podcasting is becoming massive on Insight Timer, massive. When you podcast, doing it on Riverside, taking it to Descript, publishing through Anchor, you are creating a platform for your expert speaking to be omnipresent, uncensored. And when you do this in a quality way, you have the opportunity to be timeless, which allows you to create super fans, especially in a very highly niched down market like yourselves. Now, if you're not in like holistic medicine or alternative medicine, whatever else you call it, I understand, but all of the things that I'm saying still applies, but I'm specifically speaking to anybody not in traditional medicine because you're already being shut out of YouTube and you have been for a while. But a decentralized platform that allows you to say anything is something you need to be on. Your opportunity to do this is easy. It's simple. There's AI to help you. And your CTA can be highly, highly effective. And I'd be willing to bet, I mean, I know that Carrie already has a community. Your opportunity to capitalize on that right now, a subscriber-based community, to take a free step into the deeper end of the podcast, the next evolution, the part that goes one step further than the podcast is right now.
Sean, can you give me an example of an effective call to action that gets people to join the community more than just like, hey, join our free community at carriescommunity.com? Is there something like join our free community and get the free 5-video series on how to lose 10 pounds in 10 days? Or like, what's like the best way to get people into the community? Best, most effective call to action that you've seen?
First of all, you kind of just said it, but where's the opportunity for an effective CTA in a podcast? It's in your introduction. Your introduction is a 4-step process. It's a formula. The first piece is your greeting, and it's an effective affirmation as to why your audience is here. Thank you guys for joining the Majid Speaks podcast. I'm so glad you're here. And I know that you're here because you resonate with what it takes to be an expert speaker. You know as well as I know that there's a ton of money to be made on your voice. So thanks for listening. That's why you're here. Reaffirm with your people. Part 2, that's your offer. You do not go longer than 20 seconds without giving people what they're really here to get, which is not your podcast, not your free content, even though it's gold. It's to change their life because you're a maniac on a mission. You have a solution to a major problem. They're here because they resonate with that problem. The solution is not the podcast. The podcast is the vehicle for the solution. The solution is what you're really offering. And it happens on your community. I love that you guys are here. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. I know that you're here and you're addicted to listening because I spit so much free gold for you. But the amazing thing is you have the next best opportunity, which is to step into my community. Because over here, we're leveling up, we're changing lives. It is your next evolution. If you thought the podcast was great, wait till you meet your wife, your husband, your next best friend in a community of people fully aligned with what you're aligned with, which is creating the solution I'm creating. Come over here. We've got free stuff. We're doing activities. We've got challenges and your next best friend. So your offer is part 2. Part 3, optional. In today's episode, If you're going to do this option, you spend no more than 15 seconds talking about 3 points as to why today's best episode is the best thing somebody's going to hear. Make them laugh, make them cry, develop emotion, trigger them, be polarizing. If you're not going to do any of that, skip this option. Number 4, you're going to plant your seed. You're going to plant the seed that births the whole community. What does Lady Gaga call her people? Does anybody know?
Little monsters.
Oh, I love it. Does it make sense? Who the fuck knows? But she says it. And what does that make people feel? Do you have your triggering phrase? Do you have your brand of your people? I know that because you're here to be an expert speaker, that you're not here to just create a solution for the world. You're not here to just say what's important to you. You're here to start a movement. To start a movement, we create a brand inside and out, and it starts with your people. So give your community a name, give your people a name, make them feel special. Again, reaffirm why they're here. They're your little monsters, or whatever that means. It's cute.
Sean, I feel like I need to go back to my podcast and change all my intros. Can I do that?
You absolutely can. Cool thing about a podcast is if on Instagram, you could delete your post, people might forget about it, whatever. On podcasting, but that deletes your post, right? You lose all your specs. In podcasting, I can hit swap audio file and the metrics for the episode stay the same. It doesn't affect your numbers. And we can replace that audio with a new intro. That's flexible. It keeps your sponsors happy. It doesn't ruin your numbers. It didn't take down your content for a moment. It just replaced it. Nobody knew.
Yeah. So I call my people expert speakers. Mm-hmm. Sean, what do you call your people?
Thank you for asking me that. I am so busy branding other people that I haven't branded myself.
Yeah.
And so I don't have a name.
True voicers?
Well, in the context of Fred Moss, yeah, we call him True Voicers for now.
Oh, and by the way, Fred Moss is normally on this call, but I got a text message from him says he's getting a tattoo right now. So, priorities.
Oh my God.
You guys chat in the chat box. What would you call your people? Lady Gaga calls her people little monsters. I like to give my people a name that is like that they could be proud of. Like you guys are all expert speakers. Or Marie Scott says Merry Widows. Yes, that's awesome. Those hello, good morning, Merry Widows.
Rockstar Resetters is awesome.
Yeah. Crappy to happy people, not so much.
Crappy to happy club.
I would say happy people. Hey, happy people. Hashimoto warriors. Where are my Hashimoto warriors? Where are my women with happy feet? Okay, cool. So naming your people so that they can identify as a member of the tribe and using that sort of language that's just we know each other kind of thing. I was in a group called Archangel, and we were all called Archangels. And we didn't have group calls. We had choir storms. And it's like a play off of the word brainstorm. And we're a choir of angels. So archangels unite, and we were like superheroes. And of course, we had a big bad evil that we had to defeat, which is mediocrity. We have to band together and overcome mediocrity. And we just all identified. And even still to this day, this is back in 2016. So I'm now talking 5-6 years later. I'm introducing people. Hey, Joe, meet Sally. Sally's an archangel. Oh. And now we know what that means. We did choir storms and all that stuff.
There you go.
Having that language makes us feel like members of the tribe.
That's true.
Okay. So you've given us the step-by-step and the tools. You've given us a super powerful formula for a call to action to use in an intro to get people into the community. Let's talk about making money. How do we make money on our podcast, and how do we make money on other people's podcasts?
All right. Monetization. One of my favorite conversations. One of the biggest opportunities for you in podcasting is to recognize that ad revenue is not your friend. One of the best ways to make a podcast is to monetize your own offer. I just call this direct monetization versus indirect monetization, because direct monetization is you and your audience Indirect monetization means you need a third person to help you out, whether that's a sponsor, an affiliate, an advertiser. Most podcast listeners are skipping over pre-recorded intros. They're skipping over pre-recorded ads. Don't do it. You are way more effective in selling anything on a podcast when you're selling your own thing, because people want to, and you'll find this out once you start podcasting, people don't want more of your guest. They want more of you. It's your platform anyway. Utilize it for you, not for your guest. You get to effectively call people into your offer on your podcast. Why am I so focused on this? Why am I obsessed with this? You'll learn this if you stay in my corner for long enough. The average ad revenue threshold to start monetizing your podcast through the distribution platforms, I mentioned Anchor, that's a free one. They have another option for you. We can talk about it in a moment, but Libsyn, Simplecast, all these other platforms, they want to see an average monthly download rate of 10,000 monthly downloads. Is that easy? I don't know. You tell me. It depends. I'm not going to call anything hard. But what this does mean is to start making pennies, you got to get somewhere, right? And as big money starts stepping into podcasting and the gates start closing in, that number is going to get higher. So what's the better opportunity? Well, if most people are skipping over pre-recorded ads, why do we want pre-recorded ads on our podcast anyway? Who wants to skip commercials? I do. I hate commercials. You get to effectively CTA your own offer, and you can do that from day one. What's needed to be effective in that? Being an expert speaker. Everything you've learned from Majid applies to selling your own offer on a podcast, and that's how you're going to sell it. But that's going to make you more money than anything before you start making ad revenue and sponsors. Now, here's the gold, because I basically just gave you what's obvious and right in front of you. But I just want to tell you that that's really, really, really important, because hardly any of you are even considering having a podcast. Hardly any of you. And this is your biggest opportunity in the history of what you're trying to sell. So do what you know how to do best already. Just be an effective speaker, start a podcast. But what you're going to do with that after you start CTAing the offers that you already have.
All right. Now, what about when you're on someone else's podcast? I think I've actually learned the answer to my question. I'm going to tell you what I think it is. I'm on someone else's podcast. I'm answering questions. We're interviewing. I'm telling stories. And then at the end, they say, Majid, how do I get a hold of you? And then I give them my website and I say, and if you want to book a strategy call with me, go to www.bookastrategycallwithmajid.com. And I get very, very few strategy calls. Now, I have had few, and I have gotten clients from podcasts, including someone who's here today, Rocio. She was here.
Nice.
But it's very, very few. And what I think I'm doing wrong is maybe they're not ready for a strategy call, but they would be ready to enter my free community, which I don't
Absolutely.
promote. And
Absolutely.
so what do you recommend when you're on someone else's podcast to generate sales and to get people into your community? What do you recommend when you're a guest on a podcast?
That you be highly intentional and you solve a problem. My answer is not very sexy, right? Because I just want people to know that like you only need an audience of one. When you're effective with one ideal person, the rest come. Quality inspires quantity. However, let me say the gold, and then I'll answer that question. So the gold, the drum roll rolling up to the gold was, I focus on investment ratio per audience member head. This is a metric that people are unaware of. I invented it. As far as I know, I invented it. What does this mean? So Majid has how many monthly downloads? He can divide that by 4 if he's doing a weekly podcast. That's how many audience members he might arguably have. Whatever distributor he's using, he can use those numbers. Let's say it's 200. All right. He's getting 200 people listening to his podcast, meaning he has 800 monthly downloads. If we're following the math, right? A weekly podcast, 200 people chime in weekly, 800 monthly downloads. That's how the numbers work out. If those are his numbers, and he had one person join this community right here at What's the cost, Majid?
This community?
Yeah.
It's priceless.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Let's say am I in the ballpark at 2,000?
Not even close. 20 grand. You're talking about my free community? That one's free.
I know what that costs. 20 grand.
Yeah.
20 grand to enter this space.
Yeah.
He has 800 monthly listeners, he has 800 monthly downloads, equating to 200 monthly listeners. And from that 200, he gets one. And that one spends 20 grand. What is the investment ratio per audience member? The average listener of Majid's podcast spends $100. Wrap that up in a sexy pitch kit, pitch deck, something you can create on Canva for free in 5 seconds. Share that with those aligned with selling products, those aligned with wanting to do some sort of advertisement with Majid, something to do with expert speaking, like Sean, who would love to speak to his community of people and sell podcasting. And you have the potential to attract attention a lot easier than having large numbers. You have an investment ratio per head. Now, how do we execute this in the most effective way to get the most maximum amount of money off of someone who's looking at something like this, right? Because there's still going to be people out here who are like, you don't have 10,000 people listening to the podcast, so they're going to think something different. But there are plenty of people who would partner for something like that. Like I can sell something very similar to what Majid sells. He's selling $100 per head. That's the investment ratio per person who's joined here. What can we do with that? Well, I could say, I would love to sponsor your show. And Majid would gladly tell me, hey, I know that the golden rule is that people are skipping advertisements. So no, I don't want your pre-recorded commercial on my podcast that people are going to skip anyway. That's not even going to make you money, Sean. So don't even ask me. I would be like, okay, how about I just get on your podcast and I have this opportunity to talk to the power of podcasting because you have a community of people who you like to speak to the power of being an expert speaker. And it sounds like what I sell is similar to what you sell. So if I'm an effective speaker, or if I'm a quality person who has something to pitch, it sounds like we're pretty aligned. Is that a better way to sell something than to utilize a pre-recorded advertisement? Probably. But this is where your opportunity is. Well, okay, Sean, but the average listener in my audience is spending about $100. So what's it worth to you to come speak to 200 people that are all spending $100 or on average spend $100? Great. You know what? That sounds really cool. Being that the average person in your audience is spending that, I'd be willing to spend this to be there to talk to them.
So what I am surmising, Sean, is that when you know your numbers, how many listeners, how many dollars, you can then package that and invite people to engage with your audience, and you're demonstrating their buying behaviors.
Exactly.
Cool. Sean, you're a wealth of information and we can keep going. I want to ask a real tactical question, which is if I wanted to start a podcast tonight, I believe there's approximately 3 options. One is I could try to figure it out myself using the tools that you recommended here. Or I can hire someone like my assistant to learn it and figure it out and do it sort of with me and for me. Or I can go to a full service, done for you, everything's done for you agency, which I understand is what you offer your clients. How do we decide which one and who's the right fit for each option?
Good question. Those who want to be effective today, those who want to be timeless, will step in and join my team. Those who are looking for, I need to get this done now, I have people in my corner, but I need to make some money first, should take the DIY option and utilize Riverside, utilize Descript, utilize Anchor. And then your best way to build that audience is to get on everyone else's podcast that exists on earth that's relevant to your material and be the effective speaker that you are. What you should never do, never, is release an unedited podcast that was just a pre-recorded thing. What you should never do is hire a VA and say, do a podcast, because on the VA staffing site, they said they do podcasting. You should never do that. Why? Well, most people who ask for help, that's what they're doing. That's why the bar is low, the quality is low, and people just aren't effectively selling. Majid, you said it yourself, you're not effectively selling. Although I would argue that getting one sale at 20K for having low numbers, that's awesome. That's great. But here's what a podcast can look like. Majid, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Share. There you go. Now we hear it.
As far back as we can trace recorded history, the mystics in India had a different name for it. And I truly think that when they're speaking about attachment, they're talking about trauma. Our attachment to something, our attachment to the memory of the past, our attachment to the memory of the future, our inability to be with ourselves, to sit in stillness, to experience our bodies, right? It's all the same thing. So what do we have to do? Slowly and methodically address the body's memory and help it to create a new form, a new shape, help it to discover itself. As soon as I notice that I'm out of balance, my body will bring me back into balance because it's natural.
Yo, that was hot. I know Will Resin. Is he your client?
He's a client of a client, but we're in the same sphere. We do work together.
Can you make me a video like that so I could look like a woke guru with like geometry and stuff?
Give me 3 days.
Okay, sweet.
You have an opportunity to prioritize quality over quantity, because quality inspires quantity. You already know this. You're an expert speaker. You know that speaking to your one singular ideal person creates it all. Quality content matters. The bar is low in podcasting. The bar is low. Create media like this and you will be timeless. Your next step after creating timeless media is to be omnipresent. Get that podcast and get the content everywhere. It gets to be repurposed. Earlier, you heard me say, don't just repurpose a conversation because that's ineffective. But when your content is timeless and it's content worth being jealous over, then you are able to repurpose anything you want. It's worthwhile, it's valuable. You have the opportunity to be omnipresent. Get your podcast everywhere it needs to be. And for those of you doing holistic medicine, apart from what Majid is offering you right now, I think that like it's so genius what you're doing here with Majid. But you are missing a massive element. You are missing the lighthouse to your people, and that's podcasting, if you don't have one. So quality inspires quantity. The bar is low. Execute your expert speaking voice.
Sean, for people who want you to produce their podcasts and want to work with your agency, what should they do now? And if you have any other tools or your own podcast to send us to, let us know where to go.
The link is in the chat. You can book a call with me. I just rebranded because I'm a creative person and I like to do that. We're called Motivator Agency. We're here to help motivators create the highest quality content, inspire their true super fans, inspire their true voice. That's why I'm partnered with Dr. Fred over here. And we want to help you scale from 1 million to 1 billion. If you're not at 1 million, cool, I can still help you. And that's a book a call link because my website is non-existent. My social media is non-existent. I don't even have my own podcast yet. I'm too busy working for people like you. I have too many people coming into my inbox already to the point where like I haven't even gotten to brand myself. So I don't get to, I get to walk my talk now, but you can just book a call with me while I rebrand. We can just have a conversation. And I want you to know that even if it seems that being on retainer with a creative agency like me could be costly, I would argue that the costlier thing is to not have the lighthouse to your people. But I want you to know that I am here to give away my gold, which is the one thing I want to leave you with. If you don't do anything with me, if you don't do anything at all, what I want you to take away from this conversation is give everything away for free. Give all the answers away. Give the gold away. And that's what I'm here to do. Because the more gold you give, the more people see you as a trusted source, the number one resource in your niche. And so even if you just book that call to just get some gold, I'm here to help you.
Sean Offenbach giving away the gold like candy on Halloween, live from Austin, Texas. You heard it here. Motivator Agency founder Sean Offenbach. Thank you so much. Go to motivatораgency.as.me/connection.
One last thing.
Book a call with Sean. Go ahead.
Thank you. You can book a call. We also have a summit coming up. There's a really awesome opportunity to just see what we're about. If you want to feel my energy, I'm partnered with Dr. Fred here. We have an amazing summit for you to attend. It is on February 19th. It's on February 20th as well. I am delivering dope content. I'm going to further convince you why you're missing out when you don't have a podcast. Dr. Fred is going to convince you that even though you think you're an expert, there's still a deeper level to your true voice, and it gets to come out now. So if you just want to feel our energy, come to that summit because it's going to be really awesome. We also have amazing speakers, and Majid, you're speaking at it. So you already know the value.
Awesome.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you again, Sean. Thank you for listening to the Expert Speaker Podcast. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and leave us a rating so that more people can discover the Expert Speaker Podcast and so more people can be empowered to share their message. Be sure to go to www.expertspeaker.com and take the masterclass to learn how to grow your business and make money speaking. It's totally free and will change your business. If you're ready to work with Expert Speaker, you can apply. Just go to expertspeaker.com/apply and someone from our team will be in touch with you to help you grow your business with public speaking. That's expertspeaker.com/apply. We'll see you in the next episode.